Hello everyone. So yeah, not done one of these in a while, a personal story. A lot of yous have been asking for it. I was going to try and do one a week, but I just got so carried away with all the trip reports lately. There've been some absolutely banging ones at the minute, wouldn't you agree? If not, then
we're going to have a serious issue.
Today I'm going to be talking about one of my most intense, mind-warping LSD experiences that I've alluded to in certain little videos now and then. I actually wanted to do a full-on written trip report for it, but there wasn't enough detail in it for me to make a whole story out of it like I did with my Panic on the Streets of Manchester or the Brink of Insanity one, or the Boomtown experience. All on LSD as well. I tell you what, that has been the most mind-altering chemical for me. I mean, I've had all my most intense, mystical, transcendent experiences on acid, and yeah, this one we're going to talk about today was easily the most confusing one. Probably not one of the most traumatic I've had, but it definitely was the most confusing. My head was so blagged after this. So, just to cut the filler, what happened is that 2 years ago, just before COVID hit, which was around, well, COVID had already been about, I guess, around early 2020, but before everything got locked down, in February, some of my mates came up. Some of them had actually been involved in my abridged series that I used to create on this channel, and I'm still mates with them to this day. So they came up to see me and my friends who live in the area I do, and they were up for about 5 days or so, and on the 5th day, my girlfriend had a free house, so she was going to have a party with, like, or just a little shindig with some of our other mates, and she came to meet my mates that came up and everything, and I said goodbye to them. And then I went back up to my girlfriend's, and we ended up sorting some tabs. I think they were about 150 UG each, I reckon. And yeah, I think a few of us ended up taking them, a handful of us. But me, my girlfriend, and my other mate, Gargs, as I'll call him in this trip report. So we took it we took it quite early on because we were the first three to start actually getting down to business, as you'd say. So we all dropped our tabs quite early into the night, around like 8 or 9 p.m. And I decided, funnily enough, to take the plunge and have 1.5, thinking, oh yeah, I've not taken LSD in a while. I reckon I'll be alright on it and just have some nice visuals and etc. Considering this is possibly like the stupidest thing I could have done, taking into account all of the absolutely mental traumatic experiences I'd had with LSD over the past 3 years up till that point. But I just thought, yeah, fuck it, what's the worst that could happen? Which is the worst mindset you can go into a trip with. So yeah, this is going to be a learning experience for all you noobs. Well, I didn't actually mean that was very cringe. But so what ended up happening was that we were all starting to come up, and my girlfriend and Gags, I mean they've only taken LSD a few times, so it was still pretty magical for them. They were having a great time, and you know what, I was having a really good time. Well, I was literally howling. We were absolutely cracking up at everything. Everything became so hilarious. I was literally in tears. But as I was coming up and laughing so much, it sort of seemed to accelerate the rate at which I was coming up. And the more I laughed, the more intense the visuals came. Our levels of wit were just completely amplified by the LSD. We were flinging out comedic gold left, right and centre. And I literally got to a point where I was laughing so much that the visuals became all-encompassing, and I was surrounded by them. So I guess I got more than a bargain for wanting to go in and just get visuals. And then literally I was like, right, I actually need to go and sit down somewhere by myself because I can't even see anyone. And as I stopped laughing, that's when the deep metaphysical aspects of the experience were just flooding into my consciousness. I started thinking deeply into every single aspect of something. I was looking at like the sofa. My mind was just zooming in on the sofa, and it was thinking, I could literally zoom in onto this sofa forever. Like it doesn't end. I zoom with a magnifying glass, try and get some atoms or whatever. It's just going to keep going on forever and ever and ever. And then I sort of extrapolated that idea outwards to be like, oh, we could literally just be how I was thinking, like how relative scale is that you could literally zoom into anything like a fork infinitely, and you could zoom into the fork so much that you can actually find Earth, because it's all like it's sort of the reality, sort of like Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. Like you zoom in forever or zoom out forever to a point where you're just gonna find yourself back where you were. And that thought was just sending me absolutely crazy. I was like, oh my god, I'm tapping into some serious knowledge here. If we can get the Akashic records out, I'm gonna start reciting them. So I went upstairs into my girlfriend's room, and I was saying to her, I think I'm having a profound mystical experience right now. I don't want anyone else to know, because if they come in and start, not intruding, but if they start bringing their energy in here, not knowing what's going on, I'm gonna feel like an insane person. So yeah, she understood. She didn't quite know what was going on with me, but she respected the fact that I was having like a very challenging experience. So what happened in there was she just left me in there, and I could obviously hear people downstairs, and they were doing this weird sort of like LSD beckoning me back to come downstairs. But I was like, oh no, I feel like my mind is manipulating their voices, because I was basically not in reality anymore. I was in like the sort of the astral plane, if you want to call it. I was completely disconnected from baseline reality and what was going on. So in that room, things just got weirder and weirder and weirder, and this is where the title of the video comes in. I started to experience dissociative identity disorder. Instead of like a traditional ego death, I think I was holding on to it, to be fair. I think me resisting it and wanting to I just want to enjoy the LSD recreationally tonight, please. And then that thought loop backfired, and it ended up meaning I held onto my ego, but because I was tripping so much, I feel like my ego detached, but I didn't have an ego death sort of experience of euphoria and ecstasy. Instead, I just became other people. I was becoming like basically split, mate. I became fucking James McAvoy. I just became all these different personalities. As I'd look at something in the room, some of my girlfriend's like objects she's got in there. I mean, I looked at like Zelda, A Link Between Worlds that I'd bought for her, and then I became this weird sort of like football hooligan, fat right-wing gammon personality. It was like, hey, why are you fucking playing games, lad? It's for babies and all this. And I was actually talking to myself like, who the fuck would play something like that for kids or something? Like really, really weird. And I'd pick it up and like throw it across the room, and I was like, fucking gay shit that, or just whatever, like these right-wing football hooligan brain-dead weirdos had come out with. And then I'd look at something else. I'd look at this action figure I got her of Judge Death from Judge Dredd, if you've ever seen that or read the comic even. I looked at that, and then as I was looking at it, I was literally materialising it in my consciousness, and he literally materialised in front of me, and I imagined, I was like, oh wow, this actually does exist out there somewhere as some physical being, and this action figure is a representation that we've manifested into our realm through our consciousness, and the fact that we can imagine him in our heads means he's actually out there, because reality is infinite. I was like, oh, I was going down this sort of rabbit hole, and it was just kept deepening and deepening, and then I was back on the bed. I was imagining like Judge Death having sex with people, like sodomizing them and shit, and I was like, wow, my mind is going off here. Then the next minute I wake up and I'm in my girlfriend's mum's bedroom, and I'm just sat there and I'm acting like an old English woman talking to her husband, like, oh, I do wish those hoodlums would keep their voices down while I read the Daily Mail. So stuff like that was happening, and I was talking to like my imaginary husband, and then I'd turn into him and be like, oh yeah, love, I believe so, we need to sort these kids out and that, and then I'd just be switching back and forth. And then next thing, snapped into reality, and I was back in my girlfriend's room, and she'd actually came in, didn't even notice her coming in, but I couldn't even make out her own face. She had like shadow energy to her. She looked like a shadow person, and in my head I was like, oh, I'm imagining her karma, and I need to, or her like shadow, that she needs to work through, and I was like, oh, I'll absorb her shadow energy into me. And then as I touched her arm, all the blackness like came into me, and then I like corrupted. And then apparently my girlfriend says that I just started turning into an absolute like nutter. I just started giving her loads of shit and like telling her that I didn't like her and she's here to like tempt me into the dark side and all this. So then, but for me, from my perspective, she was just there for 1 minute, and then I sucked the negative energy out, and then I purified her, and then she walked back off, and then basically more of the same stuff kept happening. Just kept splitting personalities every other second. I became my girlfriend's brother, and how he was like, yeah, bro, what you saying, and all this. I literally just completely talking to myself and imagining scenarios that I was in, and then as I was coming out of it, in my head I was like, all right, I've only been up here for a while now. It's only been like a few minutes, really. And then I noticed I've got my top off. I had no idea where that was. So I go out the room, and then my girlfriend and my mates are like upstairs. They decided to go upstairs and start painting on acid and getting creative. Something pretty productive to be doing whilst you're tripping, not like what I was doing, where I was accessing other people's minds through my own consciousness. Then I decided, right, I need to go and try and interact with people. I think I'm sort of coming down now. So I go upstairs into the attic, and then I'm just literally pop my head through and say what has actually been going on. I have no recollection of what's happened, because 1 minute, all I knew was 1 minute I was downstairs laughing my head off, having a great time. Next minute I'm shirtless, and I feel like I've detached my mind from reality. And so they said, mate, you've been down there for hours on end. You've literally just been screaming at yourself, chatting absolute shit, talking in tongues and that, having pure conversations with yourself and replying back to yourself in other voices and accents. So I was just like, what the actual fuck has happened to me? I kept thinking I kept asking everybody if they thought I died as well, because I had this overwhelming thought loop of the fact that everyone was talking downstairs whether I was alive or not. So that was like a dominant thing in the back of my mind. When I ended up coming back into my own ego from other people's egos, I just kept thinking, oh, my mates think I'm dead now because my personality doesn't exist and all this shit. So I was just asking him over and over again, like, what have I actually been doing? And he said, mate, we couldn't even make out anything you're saying. It was just utter gobbledygook and nonsensical gibberish. And I was like, what the fuck have I actually experienced? And yeah, I'd literally been in there for like 5 hours. So then when I came down like amazingly. I felt actually amazing. I was so happy with my own ego, and I didn't feel like any karmic pressure going on or shadow energy, even after I experienced like absorbing shadow energy through my girlfriend. And then when I came back downstairs, I was like, whoa, I feel well normal, which is really strange. I felt great. And then we just had a really good night for the rest of the night. It was pretty sound, and I ended up smoking weed on an acid, like on the acid afterglow, which usually sends me absolutely crazy. And I just was really basking in the experience. I was really present. I was like, wow, I've been to hell and back, and now I've sort of restored myself. But then the day after, it really didn't last, so that I usually have a sort of nice afterglow from psychedelics, mainly like mushrooms and that, not so much LSD. It can feel quite robotic sometimes for me. But yeah, I had a really bad day the day after, and then I got really emotional about death and about how, every single one of my loved ones is going to die, which is usually something I would never get depressed about, because it's something I feel like you have to accept as being accept as part of being a finite being. But for some reason it made me really existential in a depressing way and nihilistic, and then I just started crying about, oh fuck, like my parents are going to die one day and all this, and so is my girlfriend and everyone I love. But yeah, something I'd never really get emotional over, because I'm very appreciative of the gift of life, to be honest, and that just really sent my head west. I feel like possibly, again, I may have switching through all these like imaginary personalities, I probably took on a lot of their like ego baggage and shit, so I might have had to work through that as well. But it didn't end up lasting. Like a week later I was completely fine, but the very experience of just losing my ego and then becoming another person, it was like, whoa, holy shit, psychedelics are deeper than I ever thought. I mean, I knew how deep the rabbit hole went, but it went even deeper that night. I was like, holy shit, these substances can completely warp your reality. And it also taught, after that, that was like my last intense acid trip. So it was over 2 years ago now. And ever since then, I've never bothered going crazy with it anymore. I'd taken it a few times after that. But ever since then, I was just like, wow, I feel like I have seen everything. Well, I can't arrogantly say I've seen everything that LSD wanted to show me, because there's always going to be more. It's basically infinite, isn't it? Well, sorry about that. My phone just exploded, and I don't think I'm going to cut it out because I was on a roll. I really need to sort these videos out. Absolutely go on tangents, me, don't I? But what can you do? So yeah, ever since then, I've learnt a lot about acid and psychedelics, and how I shouldn't be trying to just take them recreationally and having a good time like I did when I was 17, 18, 19. Shit's changed, man. I mean, it really has, and my attitude towards psychedelics are mainly for like spiritual, personal development and experiencing like other states of consciousness and how they can help me in my own life. So yeah, I hope you learnt from my mistakes, and that was one of the most fucking weird experiences I've ever had, and hopefully it won't happen again, because I don't know if I can be asked going through that all. I mean, it's completely unnecessary. I think I'm past that point now. I think I'm ready to be sensible with psychedelics, or at least I have been for quite a while now. But yeah, fingers crossed I don't end up turning into a nutter again. And yeah, stay in drugs and on school, boys, because that's the best way to go. Alright, bye.